So your Yu-Gi-Oh collection is evidently not holding value. I wonder why. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more content. So this was inspired by a comment that I recently had talking about how Yu-Gi-Oh cards are not really holding the value that they used to have. Now, this was a major discussion that was had actually quite some time ago when we started doing all of these reprints for the QCRs. We sat through, two Rarity collections. We have the third on the horizon out here, and it's going to be pushing 200 potential cards into the QCR pool. Plus, you have all the tins and stuff out here. So, the interesting debate of my collection is worthless has now returned because the pinnacle of Rarity Collection 3 is being pushed out here, and we're going through another round of reprints out here. So, I gotta clarify a couple things here, alright? When you say your cards are worthless, you are usually going to be reflecting on what I would say would be base Rarity cards. For example, Secret Ash Blossoms from original print runs do still have a little bit of value, but they're nowhere near what they used to be. On the flip side of that equation, though, what about Starlight Rares? The thing is, if you were already buying these high rarity cards, a good classic example would be like Ultimate Rares, actually, which kind of broke the mold for this discussion, which was Droplets, Nibiru's, Ghost Ogres. Yes, all of these cards did feel an initial, hit when, reprints were announced for these things. But actually, the most interesting things that I saw here was actually the opposite. They went down, and then they went back up. So we started to see value being regained in this. Now, back to the topic here of, my Yu-Gi-Oh collection is losing all of this money. Okay. You've played or seen this game exist for 25 years at this point. For the last 10 years, it is a very common thing that we go through what is going to be the expensive phase to the reprint phase. Alright, when Konami makes a banger set, we'll use Infinite Forbidden for an example here, where, actually, you know what? We'll use Age of the Overlord, for example. I think that's a better one. When the horror stuff and Diabellstar and all that came out, guess what? That stuff hit record high numbers, all right? The Wanteds, Wanteds were $100 a piece. Has everybody forgot that? Up through February this year, it was like $1,000 to play Snake Eyes. And guess what? As of filming this, those Wanteds are down to nowhere near that former value that you were seeing being presented at that point in time. Now, that was just 4 months after that. And then we went into, so you literally went, what was it? October, November, December, January, February, 5 months, 4 or 5, whatever, out here. So you rolled the cycle, and then we entered into the ban list fear phase, where cards in the meta started to spin down. Ban list, typically at the 5-month mark, or typically at the point of these cards entering into the midsummer reprint window phase, definitely starts to spook people. So I would say, typically, your best opportunity for your cards to be worth something is typically 4 to 5 months after a set release, at best. I mean, if you want the absolute best value, you're going to be looking at the first 2 months of a set dropping for an expected theme like Fiendsmith to maintain that theme, with or without Beatrice being an impactful point of that value. So, and the other thing is, if you're looking at getting mid-rarity or low-rarity cards out here, those low-rarity cards are always going to be destined to be worth low amounts of money. Because I hate to tell you this, but it's because they're low rarity. You have to remember that if you're pushing these sorts of things, you're like, I'm going to pick up this instead of, the QCRs. Well, the QCRs, they're higher rarity. Like, Konami already said, hey, we're not going to reprint this. All right, and I look at this argument here, and I think this argument comes from the people that will pick up deck cores for like $20, and all of a sudden their deck is worth $5. It's the constant snowball effect of these already cheap cards getting cheaper that these people are starting to feel like their collection is really worth nothing. Now, I will say this. It has been a very good thing to see prices pushing down at the rate that they have been. I don't think anybody is going to argue, now, seeing as we're heading on into certain things. I mean, granted, there are a couple cards currently that are a little bit inconveniencing to have to pick up. I mean, some Mermail stuff, for example, the possibility for some Six Samurai stuff that doesn't currently have slotted reprints. Ostinatos, if you're trying to play, that deck. It's a lot of things like that. Even Dimension Centurions as well. If you're trying to play these decks that aren't expected reprints anytime soon, the Centurion value that's presented right now will not be here in 6 months. I guarantee it. All right, it is almost that. And also, one other thing that I do need to point out here. We're in the era of Konami trying to reprice point the game. And it might not look it, because this is one of the most... the last couple formats where you're looking at like near $1,000 meta decks with like the $300, $350 engines of like Fiendsmith. It might not look like Konami's trying out here, but the price of staples minus SP Little Knight are way cheaper than they were 3-4 years ago. Alright, having those cards, that you need, like Nibiru, Droplet, Tack Talents is still like $8. Alright, Thrust is about to get slashed down the middle as well in terms of value. The cost of these staples are way cheaper than they used to be. It's just, Konami has to get players to want to buy product, and the best way to do that is by making good engines put into sets to entice people to want to buy these products. Because, every you can't print every set to be Duelist Nexus. That's just not possible. And it's just the reality of the situation out here when you look at sets like Nexus. Like, everything was low rarity. Everybody was happy about that. But stores lost so much money on it, it was actually insane. So, I think there's an ecosystem where you can balance things out. But right now, the current prerogative is 25th anniversary, celebrate these things, create, opportunities for players to get into the game, get that new blood going, but also to, print the quarter centuries so that people can have these cards so they can enjoy the celebration of the game. And I mean, this, once again, this all ties back to, my Yu-Gi-Oh collection is losing money, but you gotta remember, you have to have people coming into the game. You have to have cheap cards or opportunities for people to get these. Not every Yu-Gi-Oh deck, needs to cost $1,000. Like, I'm just going to point that out. And even though the game currently looks like an absolute cluster pile in terms of its value, you got to remember that you need cheap cards to entice people to want to play the game. You can't have the elitist mentality of saying, hey, you can't have this. That's why having a high rare printing and low rarity printing, as in the current status of what's going to happen to DBL Star in November here, where you have the QCR and you're about to print this thing in the tins, you're going to watch the card get sloshed down in value to probably $5-10 in the tins, and they're going to super obliterate it in November, where it's going to be a 25-cent to 50-cent card. All right, that's the reality of the situation you're looking at in that timetable. And yeah, I know it's discouraging to look at your DBL Stars right now and go, wow, we're just losing all that value. But it's like, you knew Konami was going to reprint this. All right, like, I don't know why this is such a strange concept to grasp out here, that players are looking at this and going, I can't believe this, when the pattern has been here for the last 10 years. I don't know why people just are so oblivious to it. But I guess you live and learn, and, the saying, knowledge is power, and educating yourself are very important things on the current spectrum for this game. So, are your Yu-Gi-Oh cards worthless? Please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace out. Patrons! Thank you!
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.